Hello and welcome. You're listening to Let's Drone Out. Tonight, we're joined by everyone's favourite Kogan,
Hello. Ooh, it went big. That's what she said.
our Lord and Master, Andrew / Frank,
Hello.
the man with the moustache, Stephen,
Evening all. Hello.
and I'm your local cat botherer, right till I fly.
Well, remote cat botherer, actually.
Remote cat. Frank, would you like to fill people in?
I bought a wildlife camera for my garden and have given Jack access to it because it has Wi-Fi access to it. So Jack can now get a notification every time a cat wanders through my garden, and then he can connect to it and shout at the cat to it, and attract the cat to the camera.
And Jack's helping to build a Rosetta Stone of human-cat interaction here, by the sound of it.
Yes. I don't know whether if there's enough interest on the Discord, I'll make the I don't know, cat cam. Like I can upload my galleries and recordings of me talking to my.
You should just do a Twitch stream just showing the camera. It'd do much better than me and you playing games.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Well,
RPG hard mode. Persuade this cat.
that's it. Has anyone been flying this week?
I went on Friday. That kind of counts. It's a show week.
Yeah.
It's
Sort of.
a stay indoors because it just rains all the time week.
Yeah. Well, Friday was that one day, which is like, it's one day of decentness in all the crappy stuff either side, and I had quite a lot of failures during that day.
Oh.
One of which was the quad I was flying was just a failure.
The wobblecopter.
And the wobblecopter looks pretty, flies like poop.
Do you want to provide a little bit of background on the wobblecopter for those who may not have caught?
I think I showed it before. I've put it back in a box now because it took up so much room. So I've got this 10-inch quad from Secure called the BKLI 10 or something. It doesn't really have a very catchy name. Looks very pretty. 7-inch thick carbon arms. Can't even bend it. It's got a H4 processor-based flight controller on it. 900 kV motors, 10-inch props. Looks very sexy. Looks nicely put together, but it flew like absolute crap. Apart from like wobbling, like horribly, the camera had lines coming in it from interference and rolling shutter and screen tears as well, and it was horrible. It was flying terribly, and it like took my 6S4000 and like drunk it down instantly.
A lot of that would have been the motors, just accelerate, decelerate from all the shaking, right?
And although I had like a big 868 antenna on the back and using the Nomad module, so I'm using like 2 signals firing along. It would lose the signal, not completely, but it would go from 10 milliwatts, and I'd do a turn, and you see ELOS rank the power up to 1 watt because it's like I've lost it. It's hidden behind all this carbon,
and that still can go through concrete bunkers.
It's not on 2.4. That's on 868, and it was losing the signal really easily. That's not lost, but really struggling. And the VTX was terrible. You go behind a twig, and it's like, oh, what's happened?
Yeah,
can't see anything.
It was not a clean build, I think it's fair to say. In every conceivable way, it's a dirty, vibration-riddled, noisy build.
I think so, and I think people will say and snigger in the comments and say stuff, because this video's not out tomorrow, and say stuff like, well, it's only designed to go one way for a special drop-off mission. I wouldn't be confident of hitting any target with that. It's like, I'm sorry, guys, I blew up next door's shed because it was a bit wobbly and I couldn't tell where I was going. That's not good.
A factor in that is the more weight you put on the platform, the less it'll vibrate. The heavier you make.
So what I need to do is an experiment. I'll get myself a 3 kilogram box, which I will write on it, not a bomb. Strap that to the bottom and see if it's any better.
Maybe that's what it's tuned for, yeah.
Put a couple of bags of sugar on it or something.
Yeah,
I did
we'll
actually
get
ping people.
one of those
'cause
cats, if Jack can attract it in as our
if
payload.
anyone's used Betaflight recently, you may notice that they've got some logos on there from their preferred partners, and Secure, who make that, is actually a preferred partner. So they've actually, genuinely tried to have a dialogue about the firmware on the flight controllers and stuff, and designing the flight controllers to not be noisy. Unfortunately, it all seems to have kind of gone out the window, and no one heard about this giant quad when I asked the team. But someone is going to reach out and try and work with them to suggest a better tune, like detune it a bit or set the filters correctly, because evidently they looked at the frame, that the guys at Betaflight, and said, well, this thing's just got big spindly noodle arms, and that doesn't look too great. But there might be some software changes they can do. So I'll keep you posted if I do hear anything back on that.
That'd be interesting, because I'm prepared to have a go at it. But it's one of those things where it becomes just not at all fun to try and fly it, because it's got no redeeming features whatsoever. So even if it was flying beautifully, I'd be like, wow, this camera's awful, and we need to swap out the VTX and think about how to make the receiver. But at least it flies nicely. That would be a start, I suppose. And that's not including the fact that one of my batteries fell off mid-air, which took me then a while to find it.
I think that the price is the redeeming feature, right? It's actually surprisingly cheap for the massive motors that you get.
Yeah. Which makes me think maybe the motors aren't very good.
Yeah. I mean, it starts at $248 for, without the receiver, but $260, which is probably going to translate to about 220 quid UK. That gets you the model with an ELRS receiver and a 1.6 watt VTX, and you're just ready to go. That's surprisingly cheap for the motors are 3115s, and those motors are normally like 40 to 50 quid each. They're big motors. So
Caroline's saying they're like 1150 each. She got them for, because Caroline's building
that's good
one of these manually by cutting out bits of
right. Maybe if you
things.
buy no-name motors of this size, substantially cheaper. If you buy the fancy iFlight ones, they're certainly kind of 40 or 50 quid, I think.
Yeah, this is not the only one. I think one of my friends in the US said he's bought a 13-inch based quad, because I was asking Tony, I was like, what ESCs does he need? It's essentially into X-class territory, but it's sort of advertised as a regular quad, not so much an X-class sort of thing.
And this is only, it's got an XT90, right? But the ESCs are rated for 70 amps, and it's still a 4-in-1 ESC board, which
I believe can handle up to 8S, if I read it right.
That is a spicy power load going through there. If you're talking about XT90s, can happily just run flat out at, well, obviously 90, but you can push 100 amps. You push 100 amps through an XT60 for more than a few seconds, it gets really toasty. But you could be cruising in, just below triple-digit ranges of amps on that thing, and it just doesn't look like the type of electronics that would maybe take that. It seems like that might just catch fire. Especially, it says it can go a flight speed of 150 kilometers an hour, right? So imagine you did get, say, a 12 amp hour.
A lot of things. It said it can fly for 45 minutes as well. I'm not convinced about that.
Yeah.
Not unless that's the full 4 kilograms of payload. It's just battery after battery, all connected together.
How hot is that 4-in-1 going to get with an XT90 just thrashing the pants off it?
Seems like it's got plenty of cooling if it's going that fast.
Well, if it's going that fast and the frame is adequately built, which, judging from the fact that the arms wobble around like noodles, it might not be.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any flex in the arms.
You don't?
The arms are very, very... They look thin, but they are 7 mil, and I was like trying to flex it, and I really couldn't get much flex on that. Nothing like I would have expected on anything else.
If you've seen
I think the frame's pretty stiff.
Obsessive Mr. Rosser, with the long arms, having just a single member like that, you do end up with a bunch of kind of vibrational modes.
So we need cross bracing.
Yeah, cross bracing or like triangles. So you've got two bits coming out from the body ending at the motor, just to try and because it's gonna resonate like crazy, and you just got to look at the length of the arm and be like, well, that's my resonant frequency, and it might just happen that by the time the arms get that long, their resonant frequency is kind of in the nasty area.
I found the frequency it needs to not vibrate, but at that point you're falling out of the sky. So if you're barely turning the props and it's falling down, it seems pretty smooth. But unfortunately, if you have to keep it in the air, it's wobbly.
I just need some crazy filtering or massively detuned. I don't know. Would be interesting.
Yeah, it'd be interesting if the Betaflight guys come up with anything, because I will stick it back on and change out those components.
Yeah, they definitely work with them on the flight controllers. But it looks like maybe the bind and fly kind of went under the radar, unfortunately, because it is the showcase for the flight controller, which is a bit of a facepalm moment.
It's not very good. It's lacking in its showcase, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I think they figured that the FC was going to just go in a regular 5-inch, and this thing's clearly not a regular 5-inch.
No, but I thought they might have, if they're literally giving this thing as like it's an RTF, basically. You can just like connect your radio to it and fly it. I expected it to be like somewhat like someone would have tested it out and make sure it like flew. Maybe someone did test it out. Yeah, fly, is that good enough for us? Rather than like, does it fly reasonably? Does it? How did you get 45 minutes out of it if it's busy wobbling around doing this?
It's a bit weird they don't include a GPS to start with as well. It's a bit funny.
Yeah, I mean, that's just being blocked anyway with all the people.
Yeah, they're all jammed now.
Not going to hit us. It is weird that it's actually set up in Betaflight. It says UART6 as a GPS. I was like, no, it's not.
Yeah, if you look at their media, you scroll down and they're like, there's a handy clip-on bit that puts a GPS on the back. So evidently they're expecting you to supply. And it lists an M10 GPS as an optional part with a buzzer, which, you know, probably sensible inclusions or something like that, but no mention of it is made as an actual thing you can buy. It's just like optional in the sense of you can go and buy it, which I wouldn't necessarily call optional, because then really anything's optional, like gold-plated motors or a jacuzzi.
Everything's optional if you can buy it somewhere. Yeah, but unfortunately,
sorry, Karen.
I was just going to say, on that same day, which was the only decent day, I'd taken out a wing that was going to use the new Ochin 2 board on OpenHD, which I haven't used for a while, and got it out there, plugged it in, had my HD Zero goggles, which looks gorgeous with the HDMI in from the little ground unit, and then the wing completely failed. I don't know what happened. It's like I don't know if the flight controller failed or whatever. I was sitting there and I was like, yeah, telemetry's good. Right, I'm going to get ready to launch this. And then it's like, oh, I've got no telemetry coming through. And oh, now my servos don't react. And oh, nothing's working whatsoever at all. And then I sat there for 20 minutes unplugging things and replugging things and making sure it was all good. And it's just like, don't want to know, don't want to work.
Is it okay when you got on the phone? Can you plug it into the PC or anything?
No, I haven't done it yet. I've been all week doing other things, so I was intending to look at it earlier. But even if it did work, I'd be like, okay, well, I don't trust that anymore because it suddenly failed.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna check it out thoroughly, hopefully tomorrow.
I do still get occasional like curse of shelf quad, where I take something down and plug in the battery, and it's like, no, there was a small error in the configuration data, and just to be safe, we wiped all the config.
Well, it's not like I hadn't been testing this in my office on the floor then, because I had to reset up a new version of OpenHD on both things, had to upgrade the version iNav on the flight controller, and then I was checking all the telemetry and the servo still set up because I put it on a different radio, and then I had to like check all the modes were still working and stuff and were coming out on the screen. So it was all working fine. And it was working for the first 5 minutes while I had it sat on the floor. And after that point, it decided it didn't want to work anymore.
What's the Ochin board like to work with? Is it a much easier approach to getting a pie in the
Yeah, I mean the new one I'm actually using as ground station because it's got HDMI out, which is a much easier thing than using like a Pi 4. But yeah, the Ocean's better than a Pi, mainly because it's got power regulation. So you don't have to think about where am I going to get this 5 volts from at this stupid amount of amps. It's just like, oh, well, I can plug like 2 to 6S in here, and then I can do other things. The only tricky thing to it is the communications by USB are very subjective to like noise. So what you need to do is like find a bunch of USB cables that are nicely shielded that you don't want anymore and cut them up. And then you have about this much, which is your join to the connector on the Oaken board, and this much, which is your join to anything else. And then most of your cable is lovely shielded because I was using just this set one to try and use tethering on my Android tablet to make sure it would work, and it would fail and fail. I was like, what's going wrong with this? And then out of desperation, I plugged it into the cable I made up for the network adapter, and then it's absolutely fine. It's like, oh, literally, just because it's got
Not enough
these
shielded.
cables are bare and not shielded, it's like completely failed. That's how susceptible it is.
I had that with I upgraded my 3D printer to Clipper, and I was using the USB cable that Type C that Frank got me, the silver one. And as far as I was concerned, that was a good quality thing. It works on everything I've ever gone to use it with, and it wouldn't work. And in the end, I had to use a short GoPro one. And then
Just cable being too long.
No, or high quality. And then I got recommended a Ugreen, so I had to buy a Ugreen, and that's
It's really hard to know what's inside USB
like 11
cables.
quid cable.
You can't go by a diameter of the cable because some of them are just all plastic, and you open it and it's like 40 gauge
cheese.
wire that you can barely see, like strands of hair.
Yeah, absolutely right. Because
Hard to
I
know.
cut one open because like you can barely bend this. It's really good. It's just thick plastic and then just more plastic cables inside. And like so you take some other one apart and it's got, wow, this is really good. It's got like the netted sort of metal cable, and then around that it's got like this sort of tin foil stuff. It's like this is the good stuff. We want this stuff. Let's solder to that.
Yeah. It's hard to know.
So we'll come back and try that.
What do you have on the air side then, Gary?
It's another Oaken. Let me grab the wing. I'll show
Oh,
you.
so you've got Oaken on both sides. Okay.
Yep.
Or Ochin or Oaken. Who knows?
I don't know if it's Oaken or Ochin or something like that. But in here, you remember this. That's the expensive network adapter. So that's the flight controller there. And over here, it's got a heatsink on it, but that's the Ocean board. So we're cabled in. So we take power comes in from there, and we've got basically telemetry over from the flight controller into there, and then that connects over here, and the whole thing bangs back into the Oaken 2, which is in this bag. It looks a bit neat.
Is that Flywings Evo, or is that Flight Test?
That's a Flying Wings. So this is what the Ocean 2 looks like. So that's now my ground unit.
Fan
which
again.
is a lot neater. So that's got some active cooling.
Starting
so
to look like real products, not just a bunch of random nerd stuff stuck together with tape, aren't they? They're looking good.
To an extent, it's still that's the Oaken board, and then you've got the Pi Compute Module 4, and then you've got a fan on top of it to keep it cool.
I mean, it's not small. It just looks like less of a spaghetti
it's a lot better
noodle mess than the old stuff you used
and
to.
then you've got my super USB cable, which has just got that much actual cable, and the rest is lovely shielded USB, and that works.
I think you could be forgiven
that's
for
one working USB cable. This is not a professional USB cable, people, but it works okay for a mouse.
Nice. I think you could be forgiven for thinking that was a naked air unit type thing.
Yeah,
it looks pretty good, and you could use it as an air unit, but it's just because I already had one in the wing as an air unit, and the new number 2 has the HDMI out, and I thought that's quite a neat solution because you could imagine like I could stick this on your goggles,
And a 3D
Somehow.
printed case, call it good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The only thing that I'm kind of tethered to the ground on is because I can't record with this. I could record with this, but not with the
Yeah,
OSD in that.
I'm
And
pretty
so
sure you can't. You just write to the have like a micro SD card in it and just throw
there
everything
is no
onto that.
micro SD. It's
Oh,
EC memory, but you can write you can record to it, but not. I don't think you get the OSD if you do that.
you just
So
get the airside data that
you
is
just get the
captured.
airside. So what I do, I tether an Android tablet to it, and I use this thing called QOpenHD, which gets the same
Right.
telemetry down, and then I just screen record that as my DVR. So I'm kind of tethered, if you like. Although I could technically run it, I could run local
Well,
Wi-Fi on that and do it that way. But then
with
I don't want
Walksnail
2
and all the
lots of
other
Wi-Fi
stuff,
going.
you end up not getting the OSD on the goggles. You have like just a text file that pretty much records all of the display commands, and then you
Yeah.
replay them with a program, and it creates the overlay and maps it onto the video file. You've got to like mux in your own overlay.
Yeah, I guess so. If you could get it to record the telemetry as well, then that would work.
Challenge for someone out there.
Yeah, but I hadn't followed OpenHD up for a while, so they've definitely made a lot of improvements there as well. In the same way that OpenIPC was very tricky at the start, OpenHD also used like config files. And it's just like log on to your Pi and change this file and change that file. It's now, because I had it on a little screen when I was sort of sorting it out, and it's just plug a mouse in and you click on this thing for the antenna, and you can say change the frequency on the air unit and the ground unit at the same time, so you know
Nice.
they sync up together and things, and it's quite easy
Could
to
you
use.
get like
but,
a little
yeah.
5-way pad like you have on the cameras? Little 5-way joystick.
Do I have a 5-way
change
joystick?
settings. Do they make anything like you said? Plug a mouse in it. That seemed like the weirdest thing in the world.
I get that would be weird if you're out. It'd be like the weirdest VR thing. I'm out in the field going, yep, okay,
Yeah.
yep.
You've got a little desk next to you, just with your mouse on.
You used to be able to. I don't know if this is still the thing. When you were using the Pis, what you could do is have little switches to bridge pins, and that would change certain options. And I don't know if they've done anything like that. Don't know.
Because if you had like a little 5-way joystick, then if you put it in a module, you can just have a little clicky thing on the module, and
Yeah, it would be quite nifty.
They seem to be really designing for the sort of flyer that takes a laptop to the field. It still feels like that's the goal, right?
It is a bit, yeah. Especially when you're, because most of, like, you can't really do any setup on it unless you've got some sort of mouse or something to do some clickety clicks and change some bits over.
Caroline's got a selection to save the trouble of taking a mouse to the field. What about a trackball?
Isn't that the same? It's the same thing, except now I'm going like this.
No, it's larger and heavier to start with, so it's less likely to slide away. And you don't need a table.
Or you could go with the Toshiba nipple in the
I
middle
could
of a
take my
keyboard.
tablet and work it out that way. That would be more convenient, surely.
Yeah, just the usability side is clearly lagging behind the let's optimize everything and make it shinier and faster side of things.
It's not quite there. I think the problem with all these things is so far no one's integrated it into goggles properly. If it got integrated into goggles and had the software interface between them, then it would be a case of like, I've got this little 5-way joystick. I can do a little blip here and do things. But that hasn't come yet.
I've heard people talk about these like Radsa boards as being super cheap alternatives to the Pi, and that seems to be a promising avenue for both projects, in fact, to end up with something that's cost effective and includes all the acceleration they need in a single package.
Yeah, they seem to be small enough to build into goggles. They're about sort of Pi Zero size, and they're very, very good performative. It's like you get 120 frames per second on one out of OpenIPC. So yeah, I might look at getting one if I can figure out how to. Or
just wait until the manufacturer puts it in a 3D printed case with a nice little set of clicky buttons on the outside.
Yeah, someone's going to do something. I think we're going to be some way away from like proper full integration where you don't have to have like an external box and fiddle about with it and things.
Yeah.
But I think it's moved forwards. Everything's moving
Oh,
forward
yeah.
quite nicely at the moment.
When did we have those two projects on? It was sort of 6 or 8 months ago, I think, and they definitely
I think
matured.
so. And yeah, I mean, OpenHD were talking about their own hardware, which because I remember that some poor guy had to hand solder that sort of
Yeah.
stuff. Which
I'm not
looks
on the mailing list.
horrendous.
Did you hear anything about that?
Not really. I had a quick poke around the website and stuff when I was setting up the new version because it had changed a bit and I had to install it on both sides. But I hadn't really seen much in the way of like their own hardware stuff getting bigger or getting more of it. I know they got those first units out and got them out to their users, but I don't know what they've done since that time.
Yeah, the last announcement was a 2.6 release, which was June, end of June.
Yeah, because that's the one I picked up, and like we found a couple of weird things with it that didn't work previously. Like I used to use this option called Ethernet over USB in order to connect to my tablet, but because
USB
they
gadget, right?
completely rewrote it, someone had hard coded the interface that it needed to use, and I didn't have that available, which is why I went to USB tethering as an alternative to doing it, but it still worked. So there's something still to mess about with and stuff. But no, I haven't heard much about their hardware at the moment.
Yeah, well, intriguing to see what the likes of Emacs and Runcam can kick out. And if those two are on board, you can bet that there's going to be another sort of 2 or 3 companies that throw their hat in and give it a go.
Yeah, you mentioned this. Like Bardwell did a review, didn't they? On the Emacs things.
Yeah,
The little
the
DD
Emacs
poppers.
things that look
They
like
did.
something they're not.
Yeah, they did confuse me slightly with this. They've got these 2 receivers, and these are the receivers that you'd plug into your Android phone or laptop. So it's like USB-C and XT30. But they did say to me, this is like the regular receiver, and this is the 2-watt receiver. And I had to say, I don't understand what power's got to do with receiving. And then they said to me, I think they said something like, don't think of it as like power for receiving. It's more of a this will drive the hardware faster, and it'd be able to get more range somehow. That's yet to be tested.
Yeah, I thought it was a one-way
it's a
link.
bit of
I didn't realise that. That's odd.
It is a one-way link. There's no transmission from these guys. It is simply a one-way link. So
Yeah.
there shouldn't be power shouldn't do anything at all, which is why it confused me. But they also told me, and the Emacs guys sounded pretty switched on. Actually, I had a decent conversation with someone there. But he literally said, like, I use this one, I got like something like 1,500 feet, and then this one I got like 2,200 feet. I was like, why? I don't know, but figure it out.
Sheesh.
But yeah, Emacs said they were developing this stuff for a while actually, and then sort of Runcam jumped in and tried to rush and got to market first. But they're saying, as they would, their stuff's better. For example,
Yeah, so
you will
they're
notice.
like, let's fire up the 3D printer boys and get this out next week instead of waiting for the models to come through.
What was interesting, if you let's get one of these
Did
guys
you end
out.
up watching it, Curry? Or you
Watching
living
what?
vicariously through us? Bardwell's video.
I know I hadn't watched it.
I did watch it for my
I don't
sins.
watch many people's stuff really, including.
I did
his.
notice he did way better with the Emacs stuff. I can't remember because there's one that's like a 2-watt AIO and VTX, and then there's 100 milliwatt, and I wasn't sure which one he was using of the Emacs boards, but the
powerful one is
a
this one.
lot better than Runcam. The Runcam one suffered.
It's not that I don't watch him generally, but I don't. But when I've got something to review, I try not to watch other people's stuff just in case it influences me.
But
one
people will be influenced. Yeah.
One interesting thing I was saying about that, because I said to them, "Oh, I noticed. I think this is like the 2-watt. This is the powerful one, or whatever it is." It said, "I noticed you don't have any like external fan or anything on this. Do I need to be careful and give it external cooling?" And he was like, "No, we've built it really well, and I've had it sat there for an hour on the floor without any problems." He might have been talking about the 100 milliwatt one, but that's slightly more impressive than just chucking some
It's
components
encouraging.
together. So, but as you said, this is a really strange dimension, the 35mm board.
Yeah.
Not quite sure where it's going to go.
It's like they've really gone to some lengths to make it 35. Like, it wasn't easy for them to do that, but they
I
decided
know they
to
like
just go
extended
large.
out with it, haven't they?
Interesting
But
choice.
exciting times. Exciting
Mm.
times. We've always talked about wanting more options and
Yeah.
different options. So we've got them. I still think, and I think as you paraphrased to me, that was still the conclusion from Bardwell. It's like, this is interesting, but it's very much enthusiastic hobbyist rather than ready for the mass market. And I think it's still some time away from that. It literally need to have a pair of goggles and something you can just drop in and configure it by a couple of button presses, not by SSHing over to it and connecting it to Ethernet and stuff like that.
But when we had those projects on, I think I said at the time, oh, it looks like this is a couple of years away. And it's encouraging to make a comment like that and realize that, actually, yeah, time is passing and these projects are improving. And when you say 6 or 8 months ago, it's a couple of years away, you're looking, oh yeah, maybe it's only like a year and a half or a year away. And if we look back at where HD0 was, which had more of a public development than the DJI and Walksnail stuff, they had this Frostbite system that looked absolutely awful. And then a Sharkbite system that was a bit better. And then Carl Zhou decided to start the business himself. And if we kind of compare where those are, I think you're looking at something that's like an early prototype to that Sharkbite Frostbite system, the one with a standalone monitor and everything was a bit sketchy. It looks like we're approaching that kind of early prototype stage, but in a very public way. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, and there is something, if it goes ahead better than the likes of Bifrost, and I still remember Greg getting angry at me about my comments about what I said about that, which only made me say it even more. But that's the fact that if this thing does actually take off and does become consumer friendly, of course, it's open source hardware, which means anybody can build it. So I don't think OpenIPC are very keen on saying it's like the ELRS of VTXs, because it's way more complex than that. But if it gives every manufacturer the option to build one out of the parts they want and will all be compatible with everything else, it does make the market sort of very open. And then it's like you can expect to get decent prices for things, because of course everybody will in competition to try and bring out cheaper and better units all the time. So that's very much a positive.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be great to see that happen. And, I just hope that by getting these modules out on the market, they can start to drum up more interest, because they're in this, awkward situation where they can't get interest unless people are using the product and are getting excited about it. So they're like, well, to develop it, we have to sell it. But to sell it,
yeah,
where do we start?
As far as I know, because both RunCam and Emacs did this as a bit of a test. It's like, let's bring like 100 or 1,000 units, and both of them sold out instantly, which lets them believe that, like, well, there's some interest there. Let's bring another bunch of units out and see what we can do. And but they're like, they know it's not ready for mass market, so they're very much testing the water with it to see what the interest is. But I find it interesting to say, and Emacs didn't tell me not to say anything, but they said they're working on a goggle module, because I said, oh, these are really nice, but I think the first person that brings out something that's going to sort of, clip to your side of the head and have a little HDMI lead straight into your goggles and be able to record will be good. And they said, we're already working on it.
Yeah.
Good, hurry up.
Maybe even something that can like draw power from an analog bay and just like drop the HDMI out, so you don't need to mess around with adapters and stuff. Who knows?
That would be the ideal, because at the moment it's going to be a bit of a Franken goggle type approach, isn't it? We was like, just here's an interesting 3D print to put them on and put a battery there, so you'll be going. Here's a counterweight for the back of your head.
I hate the power splitter when like all goggles have module bays that give them power, and no one like bothers to attach a digital module into the module bay. It seems like a no-brainer to me, at least.
Yeah, I don't know if it would draw too much power or not. I mean, I don't know what he's actually used. I haven't looked at the instructions yet. I guess there's like
we'll
a
find out
2-6
soon. Next summer's going to be interesting by the looks of it, assuming that they carry on selling out these early prototypes and keep iterating.
Yeah, I mean, I hope they just carry on. Like there's still a lot to do. It's just someone needs to get on and have I haven't looked to see
And
what
hopefully
if
the
there's like
OpenHD
a project
guys get
plan.
on
Say
well.
here's our big stages. This is what we want for an FPV system, and here's our target dates and stuff.
How is
Cross-gen.
DisplayPort overlay working? Can you use actual like integrated FC OSD yet, or are you still driving everything with Mavlink?
I haven't tried it yet. When I mentioned it the other week, you said you looked at it and it was pretty poor at the moment.
It sounded like it was moving. Like I just don't. I mean, I don't have any of that OpenIPC kit, so curious.
I'll have a look. I've had a bad week in terms of doing anything, so I've got these and haven't used them yet. But I'll try plugging everything in and see what it's like. Basically, is see if I do the update on the system.
I'm not saying I won't
what it's going to give.
dip my toe, but I just think it's a bit early for me because I've already spoiled with my Walk Snail and 03 kit, and I've got to actually fly this stuff. So I'm going to wait until it's a bit more consumable.
Wait until it's more flyable.
I absolutely think you're doing God's work. Keeping people informed and putting all the hours in to make sure that this stuff can make it to market. I think that's awesome. I'm just a bit lazy myself, so waiting for an easier version, I guess.
It will, I reckon you should challenge yourself, man. You've had it too easy with these turnkey solutions, Mr. Linux. I think you should really sort of.
Well, I mean, I'm challenging myself I've got piles of other awkward to use hardware that I've been working on, just not necessarily flying stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you should challenge it more. I think you have like a server that flies and you have to keep SSH to it and type in commands when you want it to change direction and things like that. I think that's better. And you have to do it all in regular expressions just to make sure.
It's all in Perl, just a real-time Perl interpreter.
Yes, that sounds fair.
What's that version of Linux that's suicide? If you type in a command wrong, it deletes everything.
They're all mostly the same, really.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
That's the one that lives in Jack's head.
It wouldn't be. It wouldn't be.
It's just Jack's personal experience.
Challenging in many ways. It would be comforting that at least the tool set was familiar, and I'm not. I do a lot of work on like little wireless routers and things that have maybe like 16 meg of flash and 64 megs of RAM. So I'm used to these tiny little boxes, and I'm used to the way the images are built for them and the lack of tools that you typically have on them. That part would be fine. It's just having picture quality and having something that I actually want to fly with. That's going to be the barrier, because I have to want to use it. A lot of the time, if I'm going to fly, I'll just grab something that I know is going to definitely work and give me a good experience. That doesn't mean grabbing the analog kit that might be interesting. It means grabbing some digi thing and a pair of goggles and legging it.
That is possibly the other challenge. So the sort of open source HD digital system is more a sort of a lifestyle choice, if you like, because we can go out and we can buy, obviously, like the Walk Snail goggles are quite pricey, but the receivers and camera setups are sort of about 90 to like 150 quid, and you get a pretty good experience from them.
Sidebar, Curry, you've just raised a very interesting point there, because someone in our chat spotted a new set of Fat Sharks. A Fat Shark HDO Plus, which was 470 English pound currency units. 470 quid for analog goggles, which, okay, that is the same price as the Sky Zones, but with the Sky Zones, you get like a DVR that does H.264 instead of motion JPEG. You get like built-in ELRS backpack, so the channel changes when you change your VTX channel on the quad. And you get a built-in module, whereas Fat Shark, another 60 quid or whatever on top of that.
They did do a version with a module.
I thought, really, are they still 470 quid in 2024? Is that how much digital goggles? They must have gone up. And no, I actually checked. And the Walk Snail goggles, the original set is 75 quid cheaper than the latest set of Fat Sharks. And the Walk Snail Goggles X, which have analog input and do digital and have HDMI in, are like £5 cheaper than the latest Fat Sharks that don't come with an analog module and don't do any digital. It's just like, what are they doing?
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I have to say, I thought Fat Shark kind of gave up and were just like a retired little brand that
They
was
are
now
funny.
part of the Rotor
Also,
Riot people.
they had the HDOs and then the HDO2s, and then you're like HDO plus. What? Okay, so we've gone from HDO, HDO2, HDO plus, but is that a successor to the original HDOs, or is that a version 3? Because it sounds like it's actually a successor to the HDOs, not the HDO2s, if it's an HDO plus. 'Cause it's not an HDO2 plus. It's just,
Maybe it's
I
a bit
don't know.
like MetaQuest that
I
are
don't know
bringing
who the
out
hell does that.
their 3S, which is not as good as the 3 and based around the 2. Or
Yeah.
the same guy that came up with the Xbox naming convention. We had the Xbox 360. What's the third one going to be called? Xbox One. What? No, hang on. How's that work?
There's so many crack pipes in boardrooms. It's unbelievable. Tailspin's recommending the EV300 OLED. I think that's an eSheen set of goggles. One of
I
the
think
first
so.
ones with OLED panels in there.
Wow. Yeah, all I was saying before we talked about goggles was I think the challenge is the fact that as good as like Open HD or Open IPC is going to get, it's not going to get to the same level as things like Walksnail or DJI, and they're not going to be that much a differentiation in price, where you can get sort of the camera unit things like, I think the Runcam one was about £60-70, so it's cheaper but not super cheap, but not quite as good. So it's kind of, I suppose it's kind of your sort of almost a lifestyle choice to say, I want to go open source. I don't want these corporations telling me how I can fly. Wow, that is money. Then again, goggles have always been the expensive part of the hobby, haven't they?
Promote a local store if we're going to do that, Jack.
No, look. There you go. Look. Fat Shark HDO 2.1
with an
had
RX.
their own RX module. I'm not promoting them. They're the only people that list that shit.
Oh, yeah. Fair
Because
enough.
it's not on, as you can see, it's not on Fat Shark's website.
It's a bit crazy.
That's why I showed
this
Fat
is the
Shark first.
new stuff that I found there. So Fat Shark HDO Plus. Yeah, 473 quid. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
You did say Fat Shark as well.
Yeah, I believe that's the pronunciation that Andy RC was using. The Fat Sharks.
Speaking of sharks, Frank, you've been busy, haven't you? You designed something.
What a link! What a link! Yeah. So before we jump off this with your amazing shark link, I was just going to quickly point to their contemporaries just to try and like put perspective on this. So you do have the Orca ones, which are a bit more, but I think are a better product. Skyzone's exactly the same price, but with your module. Your Walksnail, the latest Walksnail ones, they're 15 quid cheaper, and they're a digital goggle with analog input.
And you look more like an ant, which is cool.
Yeah, I don't know what's going through the Fat Shark people's heads. It's interesting. It's interesting. It's challenging pricing, I would say. Anyway, sorry. Please shout away.
Right, yeah. What you built, Frank? What's going on?
Well, it was Tony's 50th birthday since the last show. He's unfortunately not well enough to be here for us to give him bumps.
So old.
Yeah. I mean, give him his credit. It's more like a visual 60.
Wow. This is why he doesn't turn up. Yeah, so I mean, Jack came up with the idea, I think, of commemorating Tony's escapades at Gatwick that he was on TV for a while with his fat shark goggles on top of his van at Gatwick immediately after the drone incident at Gatwick. And we've over the years had many running jokes about Tony's conspiracy theory hobbies. So I've pulled them together into a bit of graphic design for some
Memorabilia.
merch. Yeah, exactly. Some new LDO merch in the LDO shop. If you go to letsdroneout.com and go to the shop, you will see the brand new merch, which is
Glorious merch.
yeah. So the default is a black Santa hat, but you can get lots of other things with this particular logo on it. There we go. Someone's got there before me. So we've got this new merch. So the design is Tony as the all-seeing eye within the pyramid of Gatwick Airport runway, and it's got EGKK, which is the ICAO code for Gatwick Airport 2018, and Tony at the bottom. So
You
it's
can go for
Tony
the black and
standing
white
on
goth Santa or a
Exactly.
red Santa.
red Santa. You can have a T-shirt, you can have a hoodie, you can do all sorts of things. I
You
think
can currently
add
only get
other things.
women's t-shirts in some interesting LDO reverse discrimination. It's great. And a variety of fantastic colours, I have to say.
Excellent, lovely. Yeah,
Yep. You can be your own warning to others in the vicinity that you're flying, because no one's going to miss you wearing one of these. Look at that.
what's he
Good.
holding? He is
Don't need a
holding
safety vest.
his Huawei P30, which was
Why?
phablet phone that he's taken lots of fancy pictures on and is always going on about.
Was that available back in 2018?
I don't know. I just went
So
by
you're telling me is this a very large phone, or is this
a very small Tony.
Yeah.
We've
think it's a
all met
combined
Tony.
idea.
He's not height. Challenged in the height department. This is why we've got women's t-shirts available, because we wanted him to fit.
But should you have something to prove, that there's also a vest, for, cash outdoor vest wear.
Between Tony and Andy, there's a penchant for men's tank tops.
The black rock vest. If you want to get your guns out. Or the red early warning vest. Or
there's
should you
stickers
have
as
a
well.
furry friend?
Oh yeah, there's the dog bandana.
There is, as modelled here by a lovely little doggo, a dog bandana. It's pretty awesome. So there you are.
So there you go.
Represent.
That's how I've spent my insomnia. How about everyone else?
Perfect use of the time. Looks wonderful. Thanks, Frank. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Really cool. Yeah, I also like the titling as well. It's just
Tony
it's great.
Gatwick.
Strong brand.
That is the title
Strong
of
brand.
this.
It's the title of your autumn range.
Yeah, exactly. Just in time for Christmas.
Fantastic.
Very awesome. And Stephen, did you end up buying a Santa hat because you thought it was a beanie?
I did. I did. Yeah, cancelled it because I saw it had a bobble, which would drive me nuts. I'm waiting to see if there are a wider range of shirt options. I don't think the world needs to see me in a woman's running top. I think that would look bad.
It's that skin tight look we all want.
Skin tight look with emphasis on the gut. Oh yeah.
Show all those nice curves. So what has everybody's plans come out? Who is going and doing something? We've got some exciting plans at least. I haven't checked the weather. It's a couple of reasonable days mixed in amongst the rain and winds. No?
It looks like this weekend might be a bit better, but I just don't trust the forecast.
Well, I am going to Duxford again on Saturday, mixing another live stream. That is my plan for the weekend.
Who shall you be viewing?
Well, the Red Arrows are back from Kanukistan.
Uh-huh.
So this is going to be their last UK show of the season, and also the first UK show for quite a while this year since they've been out in Canada, celebrating 100 years of the Royal Canadian Air Force. So they will be back, along with.
Do you think they're ever going to change their aircraft?
They are definitely planning on it, but they're talking about. Don't get me started. I think they will have to, but the way they're going about it at the moment, I suspect it won't happen anytime soon.
Because I know they've been flying the same thing for a very long time. I'm kind of surprised that they're still fully airworthy with a ready supply of spare parts.
Yeah, well, the benefit is that they're using one that the rest of the RAF have stopped using. So I think sort of all the
they were the original trainer, weren't they?
You know, the T1. So whereas everyone else is updated to get fancier software and hardware and everything, they're still pretty much analog. So yeah.
Are they complaining that they won't really be the Red Arrows and that it's going to have gyros doing all their flying and
they'll just put it in Mission Planner and have a cuppa.
boo, hiss and whinge?
Well, Andy, if Andy is in the chat, Andy would have lots to say because I know he's a big follower of the Red Arrows and all the intricate details. But I think he's also said before, because he's looked into it a lot more than I have, that they prefer the older one because it's like the analogness of it means they can fly kind of in a closer formation, whereas the newer hardware and the newer software is like
collision avoidance. It starts beeping all the time.
Exactly, and tries to stabilize things when you don't want it to stabilize things. And...
do a Tesla thing and slam the brakes on when you don't want it to.
Yeah,
stop trying to kill me, Tesla.
Exactly. I think
have to do like a special key combo, like Konami code to enter manual mode every time you take off or something.
Yeah. So, but they're talking about getting a new one that's. They want it to be. It's like this modular thing where like they've got two sets of wings for every fuselage. They've got the trainer wing and they've got the attack wing, and they can any moment when we go to war, they can unscrew the trainer wing and attach an attack wing, which sounds like a lot of connectors. And
I think if anyone's hoping our Air Force is going to make a serious war contribution in the near future, they might be optimistic. It looks like a lot of people managed to get their next generation planes out just in time for swarms of very cheap drones to become utterly destructive.
Well, I just think for the cost of over-engineering a fuselage to be able to swap the wings on it, just buy two fuselages. Seems better. But hey, what do I know?
Well, I don't know. Maybe they're just not as worried about wings falling off as you are.
Well, I'm not worried about wings falling off. I'm just worried about the expense of making things modular that shouldn't be.
True.
Just don't do it.
What's Jack waving about? What's the frame, Jack?
I've been doing a bit of 3D printing. Do you remember I was saying I was trying to got a 20 by 20 ESC, but the mounting holes are not M3. So
they never are on 20 by 20s. They're M2 usually.
M2, aren't they?
Yeah. But I need it to be M3.
Why?
Because the frame's M3.
You just put inserts in. M3, M2 inserts, no?
No,
you can get like push nuts, can't you? You push through and they take like an M2, and that's what I used to do. on the frame. So you like have inserts into the carbon. I've gotten some. Beta FPV used to sell them, and you'd like push them in, and it's a nut with a push nut, right? So you push it into an M3 hole, and then it's threaded for M2.
Might, yeah. If I haven't screwed this by trying to widen it, then I'll test it. But the trouble is that then I've got a M2.5 with no grommets for a flight controller.
What are you building though? You buried the lead, Jack. Tell us what you're building.
It's a 3D printed. It's done by someone called Heliboy, and it's a little old design, which is a 2-inch little mini fun flyer.
Cute.
I printed
If it's
it
3D printed, can't you just change the hole size and print it again?
Hassle. No,
You could just get a soldering iron and just go boop.
Yeah.
3D printing.
Melt stuff. I think I probably screwed the ESC board.
Hopefully not.
Why do you screw it?
Put the drill through it.
Filing out
Widen.
the holes.
It's usually okay. They kind of expect people to put a bit of abuse around those holes, so they don't like run a lot of traces except for the ground near them. Usually, I mean, there's always one that does it wrong, but you bloody hear about them because people are always like, why is my stack bolt so hot? That's unusual.
I know. I do live in absolute terror. And they put a lovely white silk screen around it, and you kind of think, but those FETs are awfully close. Don't know how I feel about it all. It just feels wrong.
That probably means it's all right.
I don't know. We'll plug it. I'll solder an XT60 on, and we'll see if we'll get any smoke and death.
Banner.
Yep.
There we are.
And I broke my USB bin as well.
Your USB bin?
As in
I've got
USB connected litter receptacle?
No, I've got a bin that you wave and it automatically opens.
Right.
And I fitted a little charge circuit. So instead of taking AA batteries, it takes
nice.
a rechargeable cell, so I can recharge my bin by Type C.
But you broke it.
Yeah, got a bit wet.
Oopsie.
Nothing's jack-proof, unfortunately. I wish it was. No.
I'm sure you'll manage to fix it. Sounds like a pretty simple circuit.
Well, I've been trying it out on the old 3D printer hotbed. So, yeah. But
Any projects on your side, Frank?
There's a few. I mean, my biggest projects this weekend is my car is having its MOT on Monday, and it's shedded parts and drunk oil in the past few days. So I'm not.
Oh, slim down, ready for the MOT.
I may be car
Lightweight.
shopping.
Car shopping. Oh dear. It was a bit challenging. I remember when we were at Drone Fest. We kind of. I remember you babying a little bit. At the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I'd fixed it for a while, or had it fixed, or combinations thereof. But it's been really good. And then literally since last Saturday, bits have been falling off and it's been making weird noises. And I don't think it's...
It's trying to tell you it's ready to retire.
Yeah, I think it might be. So I need to fix my bicycle before Monday.
oh, yeah. Chain.
Yes, I still haven't changed the chain.
Yeah.
There we go. Exciting.
I did buy a Twiglet frame, but that's all. Where have I put it? Yeah, I saw there was this. Remember, Beta FPV were doing these tiny little frames a while ago. The Twig and the Twig tank and the Twig Mutant. Well, I kind of
You need
felt
to
like
hold it in front of your face.
building another 2.5-inch one. So I got the Twiglet, which is a 2.5-inch, and I found it on AliExpress for £2.70. So I thought, well, we'll grab one of those before they're gone. So I'm going to give that a go. But
Good.
yeah, that's something to do when the rain comes in.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure my batteries that I go to charge my one cells are all just going to puff and explode.
I'm waiting to see footage of that flight with your exceedingly interesting spicy pillow.
Yes, we need something to fly this mighty pillow.
Well,
What about
probably
Curry's wobble copter?
probably the little
appropriate
plastic copter
device.
that can easily melt. That's probably a perfect match for a battery that's probably going to catch fire.
Ready?
Oh yeah, perfect match. Fine, mate.
Yeah.
Fine, mate. Don't worry. Get nice high kV motors and just gun it.
I don't think the standoffs will take. They'll just rip
Put
the
one
thread
at the
out.
bottom and one at the top, and you've got an X8 flying battery. Perfect.
Don't like this.
All righty. We are at that point again with our wonderful, wonderful Patreons scrolling at the bottom of the screen. Thank you very much, everyone who donates to the show. One of these days we will read all your names out without error, but it might not be tonight. But yes, thank you. You're amazing, and you keep the show going and make it possible for Frank to do awesome things like create very creative hats.
Gonna get the hat.
Get ready for an LDO Christmas. I know you're out there. You need hats, you need t-shirts, you need to commemorate Gatwick. Well, I'm sure we'll talk about this more next week if Tony's back. We'll see how that goes.
I hope
right.
Tony watches to the end.
Yeah. Thank you. You've been joined by everyone's favourite Curry Kidden.
Goodbye. Oh, I'm not there.
We
Oh, I
miss you, Andy RC. Our Lord and Master, Andrew / Frank.
Bye.
The man with the moustache, Stephen.
Hey, I was doing the special wave. Not sure what that's about. Give it a go.
Win. Hey, how you doing, buddy? And I've been Bright to Life Lie. Thank you and good night. God bless you, Patreons.
All the best.
How you doing, buddy? I ain't seen you in
Bye.
ages. See you later.
Bye.